It's an interesting day in the world of Magic the Gathering. A bunch of Magic players are angry and confused about the new Lagrella card. On top of that, Wizards of the Coast has just announced multiple secret layer issues.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The Magic Historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for another installment of Mega Magic News. I got my ranting out of my system yesterday in yesterday's video, and if you missed the live stream where I went over all the problems that I was having with Capenna, it is still live and up over on Hatcher. So I'll leave a link at the end of this video for you if you'd like to check it out. But either way, I have returned to my more calm state, and that is great because what we're going to talk about today needs somebody with a calm mind to explain it. So let's take a look at Lagrella first. I'm going to put both versions up on the screen. This is Lagrella the Magpie, and she actually features in the new Capenna storyline in a prominent way. So if you're interested in learning about that, I'll leave that story up on the screen for you at the end of the video. Now, the card itself is 1 blue, 1 white, and 1 green for a 2/3 legendary human soldier. Now, Lagrella has the following ability that is probably going to hurt your brain when you hear it. When Lagrella the Magpie enters the battlefield, exile any number of other target creatures controlled by different players until Lagrella leaves the battlefield. When an exiled card enters the battlefield under your control this way, put 2+1/+1 counters on it. Now, I actually had to read this card multiple times for my brain to parse it out. The first time I read it, I went, wait a minute, whenever an exiled creature enters the battlefield under my control, put 2+1/+1 counters on it. And then I read it again, I'm like, it doesn't even say creature specifically, it says when an exiled card enters the battlefield under your control this way. So as long as it was a creature when it left, it comes back with 2+1/+1 counters. But that's like the most minor side aspect of why this card is confusing. The reason this card is making people angry is, on one level, people think this card is incredibly powerful. People are reading the card like this. Okay, when Lagrella enters the battlefield, I exile any number of other target creatures controlled by different players. So people's brains read this and go, wait a minute, I can hit everybody's creatures, like everybody other than my own. So for 3 mana, I can put Lagrella down and exile all of my opponent's creatures? But wait, then, why does she say when an exiled card enters the battlefield under your control this way, put 2+1/+1 counters on it? Is this designed so that if my opponent steals my creature and then I exile my own creature with Lagrella that my opponent has stole and I bring it back, then it gets the 2+1/+1 counters? So people are going, why is there a 3 casting cost on common that can pull every creature off the board like a giant banishing priest? And that's not actually what's going on here. This is a very weird wording. What it's actually saying is when Lagrella Magpie enters the battlefield, you can choose any number of target creatures, 1 per player. So when it says controlled by different players, that means you can only select 1 creature from each different player in the game. So if you're playing a 4-player game, you can select 1 creature from each of your 3 opponents and 1 of your own creatures aside from Lagrella, okay? So she can only exile as many creatures as there are players in the game. Playing a 4-player game, she's only going to exile 4 creatures. If you exile 1 of your creatures, when she gets destroyed, when your creature shows back up, it's got this double counter bonus, right? So this card is incredibly confusing. This is the most poorly worded Magic card that I have seen in many, many years. And there are going to be a ton of people who play this card in the wrong fashion, and they're going to be genuinely frustrated. They're going to put it down and be like, I exile all your guys. And it's like, no, Bob, you can exile 1 guy from each person. What? And yourself too. But it says different players. Bob, you need to understand this. You and I are different entities, so we count as different players. And the different player part of this, the wording, is actually what puts limits on how the ability works. But I don't fault a single person for not understanding how this card works, because for the longest time, I was the one responsible for running Magic tournaments, right? I ran pre-releases, FNMs, all that, and I had to handle a ton of rules questions. And as a result, I'm pretty good at parsing out Magic cards and sorting out exactly what it does. And when somebody with my levels of rules knowledge takes a look at a card like this and goes, what? Hold on. I thought that this exiled everybody's creatures at first. I went, have they lost their minds? How can they make an uncommon that gets rid of everybody's creatures? And you're like, dude, wait a minute. If they made a card like this, it would 1,000% be at Mythic Rare. There's no way they're going to make a card of that power level that you're just going to get at uncommon, right? We're lucky to get a few powerful uncommons per set. So that kind of ties into the whole idea that, wait a minute, something fishy is going on. So the fact that it took multiple readings for me, it's making a ton of people angry. They got all excited when they saw the card. So they're angry that they can't use it. They're confused as to the concept underlying the card, and that confusion leads to more anger, right? Ultimately, this boils down to a space limitation. Wizards of the Coast can only fit so much ability onto a card, and they're looking to do abilities that are exciting for Commander as well, right? Clearly this card has some Commander aspects written on it, at least in my opinion. A lot of the cards from this set do. Honestly, New Capenna feels like New Commanderia in a lot of ways to me. So Lagrella here is a very interesting design, but obviously confounding as well. In the olden days of Magic, they would call this a mystifier. Back in the day, they removed a bunch of cards that they felt were too complex from the game because they confused people. Now we've reached the point where we get these insanely complex cards, and I have to actually say, from a flavor perspective, it actually adds to Lagrella. Lagrella is an awful person in some ways. She takes contract breakers and she dips them in gold and silver, and she uses them to decorate that fish tank that you see behind her. And actually in the one artwork, you can see an individual floating down to the bottom, right? And he has probably been cast in some kind of metal, because I don't think Lagrella actually feeds people to the aquarium inhabitants. I don't 100% know about that, but either way, she is involved in some really nefarious scheming because she is part of the brokers organization, right? So for me, I have to admit that I love the fact that she is incredibly confusing from the perspective of brokers try and lock people into confusing contracts that they don't understand all the conditions of. And Lagrella's contract is so baffling that even the one using it for their own benefit might get confused by it, right? And that is some epic flavor. So if you want to know how Lagrella ties into the story of New Capenna and how determined she is to ultimately save New Capenna, then go ahead and check out the lore video at the end of this video. Now, let us move on to the secret layer issues, because there are actually multiple things going on here. An email was sent out by Wizards of the Coast. I'm going to put it up on the screen and we're going to go through it right now. So it says, hello, due to unforeseen production issues, all items in the Secretversary 2021 event will have their release date moved from April 22nd to May 6th. Additionally, the Heads I Win, Tails You Lose Commander decks have been delayed and will now ship separately. Current estimate is tentatively scheduled for fall of 2022. We will provide additional updates, and Secret Layer production and shipping status information can be found on the Wizard support site. We sincerely apologize for the inconvenience and want to show you how much we appreciate your patience and support by providing 2 Neo Collector boosters per debited order containing a Heads I Win, Tails You Lose Commander deck. These collector boosters will be shipped by themselves in a separate wave of shipments. What's next? Payment collection will begin on April 21st for all pre-orders that were not previously debited or charged at checkout. If your order has not yet been debited, please follow the link in your pre-order confirmation email labeled Debit Now, which will allow you to change your billing information, update your address, or cancel your order. In the event you were previously charged and wish to adjust or cancel your order, please contact our customer support team. Cancellations must be requested by April 20th to avoid your order being debited. So if you're watching this video the day that it was released, you have 5 days to put in your cancellation if you no longer wish to get this product. We'll contact you again just before orders begin to ship. In the meantime, if you're looking for an update on production, you can check our customer knowledge base here. and then just the regular sign off, right? So obviously we have multiple levels of delay going on here. Now, first of all, this is not unexpected, right? Wizards of the Coast has been having a ton of production issues. And actually, in one of the threads that I went to, when I was doing my research for the background information about this, I ran into somebody who was talking about how they work at printing facilities, and what you need to bear in mind is a lot of the resources that the printing facilities need to actually print the cards are in short supply. It's essentially the tale of the entire world right now. There just isn't enough stuff to go around. So as a result, you don't have the materials to print all this stuff. So people are, and I mean on one hand, rightfully going, why do I have to wait so long for my products? I order these and it takes 6 months or longer for them to come out. And the answer to that is there aren't enough resources to go around in terms of the materials. It's not like Wizards of the Coast is just going, hey, you know what? We could make it, but we're not going to. It's like we can't get the stuff that we need. Now, obviously, this is a very frustrating situation for anybody who is waiting for these secret layers. At least Wizards of the Coast is doing something here to try and mitigate the situation, depending on the scenario. In some cases, they've gone ahead and said, we're going to give out a free secret layer. We're not going to charge you for this one because of our mistake. In this case, they're going with the 2 Neo collector boosters. So that would be the Kamigawa, the new set right there with those collector boosters, giving you theoretically the chance to get one of those crazy like color bordered Hitasugus that are going for crazy money right now, right? So one of the things you're going to want to pay attention to this is they underlined the word and bolded the word per debited order, right? So basically how I'm reading this is if you made this order and you've already paid for your order before this email arrived, then you will be getting 2 Neo Collector boosters. Now, if you're somebody who got this email and then chose to pay for your order, I do not believe you will be getting the Neo Collector boosters. So if you're somebody who's thinking, wait a minute, I haven't paid for my order, but I put it in. If I go and pay Wizards now, will I get these booster packs? I'm guessing the answer will be no, because from a corporate perspective, the way that they would view it is, if you choose to pay for your order after being informed of the delays, then you don't have any problems with the delay, and therefore you don't require any sort of compensation for that delay. Now, I could be wrong about that, but I do believe when dealing with Wizards of the Coast and this corporate style stuff, it's smarter to look at the technical side of things and go, hey, wait a minute, they're probably only going to send it out to debited people. Like when it comes to corporations, even corporations you think may not pull something. Like think about Nintendo, for example. There's this big class action suit going on against Nintendo based on their Joy-Cons having this drift situation where the Joy-Cons aren't great. The lawyers for Nintendo just did this scuzzbag but also brilliant move where they basically got a bunch of people tossed off the class action by saying, these are the parents of children. Children can't legally enter into these contracts. Therefore, children haven't suffered any damages from what we've done. So you need to exclude all the parents of these people. These kids who have played Nintendo games and have broken controllers. Kick them out of the suit. And the judge did it. It worked. So it's like, basically my mind defaults to assume the worst, friends. So if you're somebody who already paid for your order, you're going to get 2 Neo boosters. If you choose to go through with your order from this point on and haven't paid, you can kiss those boosters goodbye. Is it enough compensation? That's going to be up to one person or another. When it comes to the secret layer stuff, you're already waiting such a massive amount of time that I honestly don't know what the proper compensation for saying that it's going to be a little bit longer or whatever is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm all for calling Wizards out when they're making huge mistakes and doing things I don't like. But at the same time, I'm not for like gang piling on them to an unnecessary degree when it's like, okay, they're stuck with these production issues. They're telling everybody what's going on. The people who are affected having to wait for their commander decks are going to be given additional boosters as compensation. And it's most likely this is the scenario that happened. The people over at the secret layer place went, yo, here's the thing. We only have enough materials to make one or the other. So you choose. We can either do the whole secret versary or we can do your commander decks. Because if you think about it, most secret layers only have 5 or 6 cards, right? Whereas these commander decks are 100 card decks. So each commander deck you could look at roughly as the equivalent of 20 secret layers. It's not an exact comparison, but you know what I mean? It gives you an idea of the scale. So it probably boiled down to choose. Either we can do all these secret layers or we can do the commander decks, but we can't do both. And we're going to have to add a couple, like a few weeks of delay on regardless. We don't have enough, and you have to make tough choices. So if those are indeed the circumstances that Wizards was faced with, then I have to say I think that they made the right choice in terms of delaying the commander deck, because that is just one item versus all the other secret layers. If you have to go, I'm not going to make 5 or 6 different secret layers, or I'm just not going to make one secret layer, the choice feels pretty obvious. Anyhow, up on the screen, there's going to be a link to the lore video talking about Lagrella. There's going to be a link to yesterday's rant stream if you want to hear some ranting about Capenna. Thanks for coming by, my friends. Big shout out to my patrons. See you next time.